Imagine being sent to prison for something you didn't do, awaiting a trial for months and months in prison. You walk into prison and you wave to a gang-affiliated member. The guard caught you wave, and even though you don't know that person, he considers you a gang-affiliated member and throws you in the shoe. But you see no sunlight for 22 to 24 hours a day, no human contact, and by the time you're out, you're suffering from PTSD, hallucinations, and other things. Your life will never be the same. This is what the shoe or the solitary system in the prisons does to people. According to Bob Allen, the Bureau of Justice Stats has estimated over 80,000 people, adults and youth, are in solitary confinement in the U.S. This also creates a rights issue. It violates a treaty signed by the United Nations that ratified torture and other cruel and inhumane, degrading treatment or punishment to other humans. Solitary confinement is causing mental and physical damage to prisoners and can be considered torture. If regulations aren't enforced, more people will end up with lifelong effects. In order to prevent the life-lasting effects that come from the shoe, we must first learn the problems, causes, and solutions. There are many problems and examples of solitary confinement, but let's first discuss a few of them. First of all, the amount is too high. According to the Center of Constitutional Rights, Juan Mendez concluded that even after 15 days in the shoe constitutes torture, or cruel and inhumane or degrading treatment, which the United States signed a treaty to prevent. 15 days is the limit for irreversible effects, and many prisoners have been confined for over decades. The second problem is that anyone can be thrown in the shoe. It doesn't matter whether you're black or white, pregnant or under 18, you can be thrown in the shoe. And according to Tara Kolb-Ressler from thinkprogress.org, a Texas woman claims that she was forced to give birth in a cell while she was imprisoned, and the lack of adequate medical care she had resulted in the death of her child. Now, 2 years later, she's suing the Wichita State Penitentiary for medical misconduct. She also states that an estimated 1 in 33 women that go into the federal prison are pregnant. So many problems. There are many problems behind the prisoners in the solitary system. Let's figure out what some of the causes of these are. The first problem is that there's no time limit. According to Sarah Childress of PBS, in the U.S., most solitary stays begin at 30 to 60 days. If inmates act out, often because they're struggling to deal with the solitary confinement, they end up prolonging their stay for 90 or even 180 days, and in some cases, like I mentioned earlier, sometimes decades. And the second cause is that it doesn't matter who gets put in the shoe or the solitary housing unit. It becomes more of an abusive, controlling strategy for guards or correctional officers, etc. Solitary Watch News from prisons says that incarcerated men and women can be placed in isolation for months or even years, not only for violent acts, but for possessing contraband, testing positive for drugs, ignoring orders, or even using profanity. Thousands of prisoners are held in indefinite solitary confinement because they have been named as gang members, or because other prisoners ratted them out saying that they were gang members so that they could get special punishment or they could work their way out of the shoe. Because the only way to really get out of the shoe is to testify about your other inmates, and this will get you out, but it also puts you in a position to get in trouble within the prison. So there's no real control on how the government regulates who goes into the shoe or how long they stay, but let's look at some of the solutions that we could try. I would suggest that no prisoner be locked in the shoe for more than 15 days at a time, because as I stated earlier, the irreversible effects start after 15 days. Craig Hanley, a psych professor at the University of California, states that the best case scenario is that they come out the same way that they were before, and it is only downhill from there. It's basically taking damaged people and making them more damaged without giving them a second chance to turn their life around. Another solution would be strict regulations on who could actually be put into the SHU. Obviously, no child under 18 should start their life that way, with potentially having mental effects for the rest of their life. Or no pregnant woman should ever be put into the SHU, as well as no pretrial detainees. So nobody that's waiting to get sentenced should be allowed to be in the SHU, because those lifelong effects could be with them, whether they get sentenced or whether they're found guilty. So there's many problems within the penal system, but by focusing on one major problem, that we can begin to improve the entire system, and let us help incarcerated Americans have a second chance at turning their life around.